let's talk about some new music. Rapid fire style, I want to talk about some of my favorite new releases that have come out in the past month or so for your guys' listening pleasure. I tried to encompass as many genres as possible. I'm sure there are plenty of albums that have released that are great that I haven't heard. I'm not clairvoyant. I can't foresee into the future what's going to be great and what's not going to be, nor am I powerful enough to have more than 24 hours in a day. So whether it's metal, whether it's rock, or whether it is something else entirely, let me know down in the comments below what albums you have been enjoying the most. And it doesn't even have to be a new album. Maybe it's just something that's tickling your fancy right now from the past. So for the gremlins that watch this channel, for the absolute swamp goblins, we have two very murky, doomy, hellish, trudgy, old school death metal records. The albums coming from Malformed and Clairvoyance, Confinement of Flesh, and Chasm of Immurement, respectively. And yeah, I don't think I necessarily have too much to talk about these two records. I just think that if it is your breed of death metal, you probably will fuck with it pretty heavily. I personally like the Clairvoyance record more out of the two, but if you are looking for some old school death metal revival that is full to the brim with very murky, sludgy sort of riffs, that sort of doom and gloom style, subterranean in its nature, not too clean on the production, heavy on the blood and guts, either of these albums I think would scratch that itch for you. An album I have been absolutely itching to talk about is the Deathdotgov album deathdotcom that released back in July on the 4th. Maybe it's an acquired taste, or maybe it's just something I like, but I love when bands are incredibly unique in terms of their identity and have a clusterfuck amalgamation of genres coming together to make one freakish style, and that's exactly what this project does. They come out of Phoenix, Arizona. They've been kicking it for a little bit of time. These guys scratch a very specific itch for a band by the name of See You Space Cowboy, and I understand all the stuff that's happening with See You Space Cowboy and stuff. It doesn't change the fact that they were an incredible band, a very unique band, and Death.gov has that in spades. If you want a band that is as spastic and erratic as they are sometimes claustrophobic, sometimes melodic, sometimes metal, sometimes punk, sometimes post-hardcore, sometimes soft little interlude moments. If you like a band that does not stay in one place for too long, a la The Locust or See You Space Cowboy, a band that is constantly evolving their style in live time right before your eyes and keeping you on your toes the entire way through, this project has it in every single way and then some. I had yet to really find a band that scratched the same itch as See You Space Cowboy that are still active, but I don't want to play them out to just comparison because they are so much more than that and are a very freakishly unique and exciting band. And excited is the only way that I can really word this album and this project. I am super stoked to have discovered this album, and I can't wait to see what this project does in the future. One of my favorite albums that have dropped this entire year would be Blind Equation's record, A Funeral in Purgatory. Electronic music being infused with metal is my bread and butter. I will die on the hill that I think when it is done properly, it can be really good. Is some of it cringy? Yeah, bitch, that's the point. It's supposed to be cringy. I'm not saying it can't be serious. I'm just saying most of the time the cringe is kind of part of the culture. These guys are a cybergrind, electronic, electro, EDM, emo, indie, whatever the hell you want to call them. They've had an awesome 3-album run so far. I went back and listened to the 2 albums that preceded this one, and yeah, they're just very consistent, and you can definitely see how they have upped the production quality, how they've upped the songwriting. It is clear as day impressive. Their earlier stuff was a lot more raw. I think that a big comparison that I can make in terms of how their style changed throughout time in a pretty short period would be kind of what happened to the Contortionists back when they were making music like Exoplanet that was like pure breed deathcore, and it was very raw in general and kind of lo-fi in comparison to how pristine and gorgeous and meticulous the Contortionists would become in their later years. Sometimes I just want to have fun, and I want an exciting record that feels like sometimes it doesn't take itself too seriously. And while I do think that Blind Equation does that across this record, I don't want to undersell the fact that these songs have a lot of heart to them. They have a lot of transparent emotion to them. And even though this album is fairly short in the grand scheme of things, damn does it pack a punch while it's here. This thing is a damn labyrinth full of these twisting synths interlaced with these like clashing technological blast beats and crazy vocals that are mixing like old school electronicore music and early metalcore music. The thing that really impresses me about this thing is that the electronic influence isn't just boiled down to the dime a dozen shit that you were getting from projects like I See Stars and Inner Shikari and Attack Attack back in the day, who were trailblazers for the electronicore style, obviously, but you see various different shades of electronic electronic music, shades of electronic music peppered throughout this whole thing. And generally, a lot of electronic-core bands kind of get obsessed with the idea of feeling too produced or not feeling too produced, and towing the line between the two. Blind Equation kind of knows that, and they play around with that in that middle ground, where sometimes these things do feel very digitalized and do feel like some futuristic movie from like the year 2700. And I think it also helps that through social media you can tell how much passion is going into this project, and the fan base that this project is cultivating I think is wonderful, and this band is very much on the verge of breaking through, and I think they are already on that trajectory, and I wish them nothing but the best. One of my favorite modern grindcore bands dropped a project one day in Fukushima. The Shameful 18 is the title of this project, and it has been since 2018 since we heard something from this project. And much like every other power violence and grindcore band throughout the years, they've been lining their discography with splits and demos and EPs and little short things. And yeah, I highly recommend this for someone that wants some pummeling grindcore music, an onslaught of sound, very napalm death terrorizer type of grindcore, that 80s and 90s almost sort of crust punk laden style of grindcore music that is constant, that is in your face, that is unapologetic, that is very heavy. The drums sound wonderful here. Also, fans of Cattle Decapitation I feel like shouldn't sleep on this band. A lot of the riffs and drum writing reminds me a lot of some of the greatest Cattle Decap records, and that absolutely is a compliment. I find a lot of modern power violence and grindcore bands to sort of go by in a flash in a way that leaves no room for memorability. And for every project like Nails or Wormrot or Internal Rot or Trap Them, there's a whole host of very forgettable projects. And I think what sets apart a really good grindcore project is actual intelligence being put into the riffs. It can be fast, it can be a flurry, it can be a berserker's frenzy, enrage. Actual articulated ideas put into your music. You can put this on and spin kick a wall, but you can also kind of pick it apart and be like, there's a lot of guts and glory in these riffs. And specifically, a big reason I love it, the drums. The drums are phenomenal. Outside of Blind Equation, the second record that I have played the most in the past couple of months would be Reveries by Boneflower. This one is not just strictly a metal release. I think that you could classify this a lot more as post-hardcore or screamo, but this is an album that I have not been able to stop spinning. It is heartbreaking, it is heart-wrenching, it is so harmonious, it is so melodic, but it is also despondent at points, it's depressive at points. The production is ethereal, almost like shoegazy at points, that sort of art rock, experimental rock screamo of the late 90s going into the 2000s. I think a big fatal flaw of modern screamo and post-hardcore bands is not being able to nail the landing when it comes from their transitions from the more somber moments to the enraged moments and vice versa, but I was blown away by Boneflower and how each of these songs just serviced as their own little mini stories. They knew when to pump the brakes, they knew when to not, and it reminds me of all of my favorite releases from the 90s. Even if it is a little bit better produced, it is still very DIY though. Next up, Lightless with a Foreseen Loss. These guys come out of Germany, and damn, this is a full body experience. I am incredibly picky when it comes to doom metal, y'all know that, so if I'm recommending something to you, you know it's coming from a genuine place. I love full body experiences when it comes to my doom metal music. In the same way that grindcore music can have a lot of intelligence put into its fast songwriting, you could say the same for doom metal. Being slow doesn't automatically make you a good band. However, the common thread between my favorite doom and gothic metal releases is heart. And this album is something special. It is my favorite doom metal release of the year so far. It fits the bill for my favorite things to come out of like funeral doom metal. It is incredibly slow. It's only 4 tracks long, it is well over an hour's worth of material, and as a result of that, it might be an acquired taste, it might not be for everyone, but as a contrast to the much faster and more emotively spastic releases that are across this list, I really wanted to counterbalance that with something that has been providing a lot more emotional depth from a slower department. It's no surprise that this side of Europe comes out with some great slower music and doom metal and gothic metal music, so it's not surprising this thing came from Germany. But when I say slow burn, I mean that. This isn't the album to turn on if you're wanting a very quick result. It might take you a little bit, but you will know very quickly if it's something that's up your alley or not. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but if you want a very somber doom metal release that is very much worth your time, I think you should check it out. And those are just some of my favorite albums that I've been spinning recently, but let me know down below what yours are. I can't wait to hear it. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the Review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell. well.